So the basic difference between those sections and the previous sections is that we will use Arpeggiator or sequencer to actually create our sounds here. You can actually try to arpeggiate or sequence any sound that we create so far, of course, but this time we will create sounds that will suit best to this playstyle. For now, let's turn the Arpeggiator off. So we got some simple sweeping bass. But what we have here is filter modulated by the LFO1, which is sample and hold mode. What sample and hold mode means? Instead of sweeping up and down in a fashion like sine wave or saw wave or square wave or anything, sample and hold it's instead jumps right up and down to random values. It's also key synced, which means each time we play, we hit the key, it's kind of get new value by random. And because of that, each time I play the note, it randomly opens or closes the filter. And it's really handy when we put Arpeggiator on, as it adds a lot of additional movement. Yeah, I think that's it. The Arpeggiator itself, it's set to moving down by 2 octaves in 16th notes. Yeah, and that's it. It's really handy if you have a sound that play by itself to try to mess with the parameters right now. For example, we got a lot of noise here, which add a lot of character to the sound. Just find the values that suits best to your mix. Oh, that's nice. I like it. Maybe more than this classic one. So let the arpeggio go and experiment with the parameters here. Okay, next kinda automated sound without the Arpeggiator or either the sequencer here is this. And instead of using Arpeggiator, we will use LFOs. Each LFO can be put in the ARP sync on or off. If you put the LFO in ARP sync off, you can set its rate in hertz, and when ARP sync is on, instead of that you are putting the LFO in subdivisions of tempo you set on the Arpeggiator. Okay. Now we got a lot of parameters controlled here. The sound really doesn't matter here. You can set anything you want here. What matters here is that the LFO1, which is saw wave ramping up, controlling the LFO, the VCF cutoff point. We got inverted envelope. So initially the filter closing itself, and over time, sorry, it gets open. What else? The LFO also why is that? It's added. I think that was kinda experimenting process here. We don't really need it here. Just add the LFO to itself, and the LFO2 is added as well. So we actually have two LFOs controlling the VCF frequency, creating that kind of sweeping motion. And there is a reverb and delay, and I think that delay here to match the sweeps, yeah, it's also put in the subdivision mode, 16th notes instead of constant time. Can you hear it right now? To add another subdivision motion to the sound. Next patch is really similar to the previous one, but it's much more complicated. I don't want to show you each detail of it, because it's not that exciting to spare like 15 minutes explaining how to recreate it. I much more want you to try some ideas and create your own similar movement in your arpeggiated or not sounds. There is a delay in ping pong mode. It's 16th notes time, ramping up saw wave that is everywhere, like it's controlling the oscillator fine, both oscillators fine. It's controlling the first effects. The first effect on my list is EQ, so it's controlling the I think it's low mid frequency on the EQ. It's controlling the pulse width modulation depth. It's controlling the VCF frequency. So a lot of modulations here that creates this kind of ping pong sound motion, which actually needs a few cycles to stabilize, which is nice. Yeah, so that was two ideas of using LFOs as modulation sources to create rhythmical patches. Okay, arpeggio now. We got some distortion here, so you can hear we are kinda noisy, but it's needed here, and it's actually not a problem as it's arpeggio sound, so it will constantly choke that noise away. And without the arpeggio, you got simple, really short, double oscillator sound. What we have here is a really short decay to the minimum sustain. So just the attacks of the notes. We got, of course, the delay, which is time synced. So and a lot of reverb. So now let's, yeah. Nothing fancy, just 16th notes, 1 octave up, with a lot of reverb and really short VCA. Another thing you could try with Deepmind is creating the sequence. The Deepmind itself doesn't have the typical sequencer on board, but it has something that you can use as a sequencer. It's actually called sequencer, but it's not really working as a typical sequencer. But here, if you go to Arpeggiator sequencer settings on the second page, get a sequence. And now here you could create some, you can put values on here on each step, which are synced to the arpeggio rate or song tempo. And now what I did is I decided to use it as a sequence of notes. All those values are semitones. If you go really low, like 3 octaves below, or even lower, you can create kinda ghost note because it's too low to sound or fully opens. So that's a sequence. You can put anything you want here, and to make it work, we have to go to the modulation matrix and add control sequencer as a source to oscillator 1 and 2 pitch, which will change the pitch of oscillators over time. So now when we change the song of tempo song, what else? There is something fancy here. No, just or delay. 2 oscillators controlled by the sequencer. Yeah, I think that's it. It's really short attack and decay. If you go if you like, you can also globally close the gate here. Oh, actually you can't, because it's not arpeggio. So if you want shorter or longer notes, you have to close decay time here. What else we have here? No, we don't. The arpeggiator is off. So that's it. Only sequencer is really a big deal here. Without the sequencer here, I will show you how it sounds without the sequencer. Oh no, there is an Arpeggiator open running to create that subdivision, but without the sequencer, it's all the same note, as it's 1 octave, and we play one note. Here also we have the patterns. We can try to change. It's changed the behavior. Of the Arpeggiator. You can also create your own patterns. And now put the sequencer on. Oh, that's interesting. So it's really a musical tool. You can create a lot of cool ideas just by random. Okay, another idea is similar to previous one, but this time we will put slew on the sequencer. What it does, it makes a slow rate here. It makes the notes on the sequencer glide between each other instead of just jump up and down. So it's really similar. Sequence is different. I tried to create long intervals between the notes to show you that glides. It sounds like this. It's really similar to the previous one, so just add a control sequence as a source of the oscillator 1 and 2 pitch, and yeah, that's it. There's also some kind of faked frequency modulation here, I think, but it doesn't matter on which sound you put that idea on. It's just, again, you can it in the hold mode and try to experiment a little. Okay, we've almost done with the arpeggios and sequence stuff. Now let's try some filter action with the Arpeggiator. So it's really similar to our previous patch when we play with the filter. It's just arpeggiated filter, resonance. So resonance all the way up. You have to tune it by ear. Yep, and that's it. No effects here. Just insert and amplify it as far as we can go here, because it's really tiny, quiet patch. Doesn't matter if we turn them on or off. It's just filter that works here, and a lot of envelope. Yep, that's it. Really short VCA with just a little of an attack. Same goes to VCF. No attack, just a little decay. Yep, that's it. And the last one here will be kinda percussion-like, maybe sequence. So nothing really fancy here. You can mess around with the pattern presets to find some interesting rhythmic variations. We got a sequence here with a lot of really low notes as ghost notes to create that rhythmic drum-like pattern. And no attack. Here, if you go really low on VCA decay, it will be more percussive and more melodic. As we go higher and higher. Sorry, that's the VCF and the VCA. it's not that audible here, as the sustain is quite high. But if you go lower on the sustain, that's another dimension of the rhythmic variation. Yeah. And on the FX side, it's a little bit distorted with delay and EQ and phaser, which is actually, I think, quite important here. Let's try to remove the phaser. Yeah. So go and mess around with your phaser here and or other patches as well. Okay, last category will be drum sounds.